We call the meeting to order of the Town Council's Financial Oversight Committee. Heading into finalization, it is May 20th, 2019 at 10:30 a.m. We are in the library conference room. Is anyone taping this meeting other than LCAT? I don't believe so. I don't see anyone. Okay. The final review of all recommendations. And we've just received an email, but I sent individually, I asked each committee member to consider the help desk administrator and how to fund it, and also the dispatch budget. So the town manager did send us some minutes from the meeting of September 18th. I believe you all received a copy that talked about the funding and how it was proposed. Did you receive one, Kathy?
I did, and I had a moment to, geez, I used to be organized in my previous life.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I've never used more paper clips and rubber bands for a project. I read those minutes over for just to refresh my mind, but some things stick out in those minutes that, I don't know, it helped solidify some of my thinking. In the minutes, the discussion of dispatches, page 4 in what I printed, Councilor Ford added that if it doesn't work out, the council has to reassess what the long-term plans are. Oh, that was in reference to we need a partner community.
Yeah.
And like Mike said, as well as Denise agreed, that the reason we gave as a council the nod to go forward and establish a dispatch department. Mm-hmm. With the intent to start it up and man it, or, man it, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Genderless.
Staff it. Yeah.
Staff it. Because, as Denise has used the word and Mike, we have to have a product to market to a potential partner community. And that, in the minutes, it said it could be done in this year with current funding, meaning last July, August, September, to do the startup. So I go back to Joe Ford's remark that if it doesn't work out the way we plan, we have to reassess, which I don't have an issue with the having a dispatch department. It's illogical, like in today's time, not to have one, I suppose. But listening to Mike and Scott and looking at the organizational chart that they've put forward, it seems to me with a director who's full-time, 4 additional full-time, and then right now 3 part-time, 1 additional part-time who's in training, and the potential for a 5th part-time. To be as articulate as I can, I think we've staffed as though we had a partner community. Mm-hmm. And we don't yet, and there always, I assume, will be the potential somewhere in the neighborhood, draw a circle around East Longmeadow, to get one. But until we do, we're equipping as though we do have to, and I feel like we've overspent in that way. Not intentionally, not within a desire to create a bigger product than we need, but right now the product we need is like, I'm not articulate this morning, is I think too big for the budget until we have a partner, a Palmer, a Hamden, a Longmeadow, although I don't feel the same way Denise does that there's the potential for Longmeadow to come this way, especially around the news of Mr. Crane, their manager, moving to another position. I don't think that would be the trigger catalyst for Longmeadow to come here. They, with Chicopee, have received thousands of dollars in grants already for a startup, and it would behoove them to continue that way. Otherwise, they'd probably have to forgive some of that those funds back to the state. So I wouldn't be as optimistic about a Long Meadow in the next 6 to 9 months coming this way. I think the potential is east of us, Palmer, Hamden, whatever, Brentford, I know.
Seems pretty standalone. They're a smaller community. I agree with that fellow.
And the other towns that are within our reach, Ludlow or Wilbraham, they have long established traditions of being standalone and want it that way. And I can't speak for how they're staffed. I have to rely on a Scott, a Mike Kane, or people who are in the industry who are familiar with the colleague towns. But I feel like right now, especially after reading those minutes, it pulled it back into focus for me. We staffed it to create a product. We've not yet attracted the partner to help pay for it. When that happens, then we'll be back to only needing to fund $180,000, give or take.
Right.
And then the benefit with 2 people running 1 gig, you get more, you're more attractive for grant funding. But we can't go that route yet because we need the partner first. So that's a long way around to, I could see my way in the when we get to a council stage. If you made a recommendation not to fund that budget that high, I could support not funding it that high for the present time. And I don't believe for a minute that we would be sacrificing public safety, because a year ago we didn't have a dispatch department and we had no issue with managing public safety from the police side.
I appreciate your comments. I noted right at the beginning, it was to hire 5 full-time, 5 part-time, but the front page, the town manager added in a comment, about the partner community, and she said that it's not clear right now if there will be shared service or individual dispatch. There could be a problem with the budget next year. And
here we are.
indeed, it is here. So I noted also, Councilor Ford added that if it doesn't work out, the council has to reassess what the long-term plans are. I mentioned that on Friday, that I thought we had a 2-town dispatch center, and the taxpayers are paying for it. And I think that's unfair. So I will ask Mr. Kane. I think he worked out some numbers on his own.
I just had one. I mean, I agree with Kathy, I think, in her position. And when you look at the number of calls per staffing hour, it seems pretty low.
Yeah.
And the only question that I got raised from the information that Denise sent us was that the $311,000 in police overtime. And as I thought about that, if it was being staffed prior to this with police overtime, I would have expected to see the police overtime go down when the civilian dispatch, but it doesn't seem to. It seems to be steady at the 2018, 2019, and the proposed 2020 overtime. So if Denise were here, I would ask her how that works, because theoretically there might have been some savings that would have accrued, since I got the impression that police were staffing the dispatch via overtime, so it's not like. So that's my question, but it doesn't, and I'll defer to Mike now because he's put a lot of work on.
Yeah, I would like to respond to Jim. You've got to remember that we're not shorting the police anything at this point in time. They've got 3 new officers coming out of the academy in July, and they've had one that has just returned to the department. Right. So there's 4 police. Unfortunately, I never received the police line item budget, so I can't speak to how the overtime was impacted. Mike?
Okay. I'll start with, after numerous phone calls this weekend about this budget that seems to be higher than what people would expect, I figured the best way to back into this would be to make a schedule for the month of June and how to staff it. once we know how we're staffing it appropriately, then we can put a number together, a number to it. And so in essence, I'm doing the budget off this schedule, and then I'd like to compare it as a group with the budget that was submitted.
Mike,
So-
can you, excuse me, can you please explain your expertise with creating the schedule
Okay.
for the viewing audience?
A little bit of the complication here is it's called a 4-on, 2-off schedule. And years ago, I was a partner in a racquetball health club facility. And when you run 24/7, you're faced with the same obstacle. Sometime after, when I was working for the parent company of American Airlines, our flight lines had to be staffed 24/7. So the same scenario again. And putting budgets together and schedules was one of my jobs. As I said earlier, you can't put a budget together till you put the schedule together so you understand the implications of the cost. So what I'd like to do is give
So
everybody a
you've
copy.
had a lot of experience doing this over the years.
I have.
And you currently do that?
Now, this is what I do today
Yeah.
at this point in time for
Yeah.
a neighboring police department. But if I could give each one of you a schedule here, and
great.
please bear with me because this is going to look overwhelming at first, but it will make it easy to understand how we're staffing this department.
Thank you. Do you have one more for Jeannie?
For the minutes
The
later.
copy
Well, you know
machine-
what? I'll give you mine in a minute, Jeannie.
Well,
Okay,
why don't you
okay.
follow along, and then we can give it
Yeah.
to Jeannie.
Great, thank you.
So, once we get through part of this, if you have questions as we go, please ask. But I want to start off at the bottom where I made a note. And the note says F1, F2, F3, F4, and F5. So I'm going to use F1 as an example. It says first next to it. So that would be full-time for the first shift. F2, full-time for the second shift. F3, full-time for the third shift. F4 is a full-time position, and it floats between the first shift and the second shift, which I will explain. And F5 could be a full-time or part-time, depending how we decide to put this together. So if you come up to the schedule now, and it might be easiest to start with, let's go by Saturday and just look at Sunday here, which is the 2nd of June. And you can see, I put the 3 shifts in each calendar block. So F1 is 7 to 3 for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That is your, then the rotation happens here. So this is where it's going to get confusing to you guys because, you know, it's not anything you normally work with. But
Yeah.
F4 would come in right now and take the next 2 shifts on 7 to 3 to give F1 2 days off before the rotation starts again. Okay, so now let's go down to second shift. So when I said F4 floats, you can see that on the first week of June, our full-time 4th officer would work 7 to 3, 7 to 3, 2 days in a row. And when he works his following 3rd shift, he goes to the 2nd shift to work 3 to 11 and 3 to 11 before he gets 2 off. So that's what's known as backfilling. So we're using F4 to backfill the 1st shift and the 2nd shift on the 2 days that they have off before the rotation starts again. Is everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about our, go ahead.
No, you were very quick to say yes. I can't say I'm completely there, but keep going and I'll
Okay.
try to catch up.
So now we're going to talk, we've talked about our first shift, and we talked about who backfills the first and second shift on the days off. But your second shift person here, you can see it's very clear on 3 to 11, which we, from our note down there, is F2 for 4 days. And then when he has his 2 days off, the F4 position backfills those 2 days. So that, those two cover the first and second shift entirely, with 3 full-time people working the rotation. Okay, so our next shift comes in, which is F5, and that's 11 to 7. So that person would work 4 days on, and
5,
and
1, 2.
so now at the end of the 4-day cycle, you still have 2 shifts that are vacant, And that could be filled with a part-time person, or in our case right now, we have 6-time employees, so you could use him for those 2 shifts on the last 2 days of the 11 to 7 work week, which would still leave that full-time person, if it was a full-time person, 16 hours left. And those 16 hours could be used at any point in the schedule, because the whole schedule is covered right now, to be an extra person for whatever shift they decide to use them for, okay? So where I'm gonna go from here is into the math, because if you really looked at it, and once you digest this, you're gonna see the schedule works. And everybody would be covered. And if we utilized all the full-time employees, which is 6 of them, correct? Which is our
No, it'd be,
Five
there's
plus
5 full plus right now 3 part,
Okay.
right?
With a 4th and
Well,
training.
4th in training and a 5th TBA.
Oh, I see what you're saying, but you have the manager.
Right, so let's
Manager's
count,
supposed to be a
He's a working
dispatcher.
manager.
The
yeah.
way I'm starting this presentation right now is with no cuts to the labor as they submitted. And I want to compare this budget with theirs, and then we can figure out if we all feel it's overstaffed. So what I'm saying is we are paying 6 full-time people right now, okay? That is a
How do you get
department head
6?
and 5 full-timers.
No, I get,
No,
Oh, okay,
I get Scott as the department head, but he does work the desk when needed,
We have
And-
5 full-timers and 3
part-time.
part-timers.
okay, but the department head is considered the 5th, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so if we kept,
that changes your numbers.
well, we can go through this as simple as, if we take the 5 full-timers, correct, that we have? Everybody agrees it's 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
5 times 40 hours a week is 200 hours, correct?
yeah.
Okay. And the way...
200 hours.
Pardon, right. And the way this budget was submitted from the department head was to staff it with, and I'm going to back into this, that if we staff this department 8 hours a day, times 7 days a week, we come out to, I don't want to say 8 hours is a shift, so it would be 24 times 7, which is 168 hours, correct?
Of work a week.
Right, that's not, now, what they want to add to that is 112 hours, and where I'm coming up with that is that they want 16 hours a day times 7 days a week, so that they're doubled up on the first shift and the second shift. We agree on that?
Yeah,
I believe that was there.
Okay.
His
so-
model was 221, right?
221.
yeah.
Okay, so the 221 model that they're asking for, if you add your 168, I'll just check, I just want to make sure. 168 and 112 is 280 hours.
Remind me where the 112 comes from again?
The 112 is, let's talk about 1 week, and they're asking for 16 hours a day, which is 8 hours for the first shift, 8 hours for the second
That
shift.
is double with 2 full-time on it.
Right?
Yeah.
So we got 2
So
full-time and
16
1
ti-
part-time?
Right now, we're just figuring out hours. We're
Okay.
not talking about
Okay.
position. We're talking about how many hours they need to staff the department the way they want.
Yeah.
And I'm saying 16 hours a day, which is first shift and second shift, where they want to double up, times 7 days
Is
is
112.
112. So 112 into 168 to staff at 24 hours a day times 7 days a week is 168. When you add them together, the manager is asking for 280 hours of labor. Okay?
A week.
A week. So where I'm going with that is,
Oh,
with the
I see.
5 full-timers, without interrupting the schedule, we said we have 200 hours. So they're looking for 80 hours of part-time help to make the 280.
Gotcha.
Does everybody follow?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
So I'm going to run their scenario. We're not even talking or challenging the labor at this point. We're just going to, we just want to put a number to it. Okay? So what I would ask is, for the 5 full-time people, which is 4 full-timers and a department head, to give us the 200 hours. The cost of that, I believe, is $223,916.47 if we take that information from the front page, but I'd like somebody else to
Okay.
look at that with me.
Walk me through that math again.
162, 481.92, plus the 61, 434.55, is that what you're,
I would add the full-time positions,
yeah,
which is,
the 162,
the writing's a little
481,
small and it's Monday morning.
Yeah, it's 162, 482,
6,
Okay,
9, 3.
plus the
I come up with,
61, 435.
I come up
Yes.
with 223,916.
okay, so that's the number I came up with.
Say that
All
again,
right.
223?
916.
47,
17.
yeah,
Okay,
47.47.
yeah.
97.
so
Close.
from there, we're still short
this
80
point.
hours of labor, okay? And we've made a position for all the people that they've hired so far,
Okay.
for full-time, right?
Okay,
And so now we need to make up 80 hours of labor. So that 80 hours of labor obviously would be made up with part-time people.
When you
So
say
to-
make up 80 hours of labor, you mean to satisfy the 221 model?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And get from the 200 hours,
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to gather
I
from
got it.
our,
Okay.
So we need 80 hours. So if you take 80 hours and you look at, if you divide all these employees out, we're coming out with part-time people at about $18.50 an hour. So I would take the $18.50 an hour and multiply that times 80 hours. And if somebody can give me that number, I'll have a
Jim is the
calculator.
guy.
I have a calculator, 1850 times 80 hours,
Yes.
1480?
$1,480.
Okay. So
That's
that's
all?
Wait a minute. Yes, because we're only talking about
That's
a
an
week.
hour, that's a week.
Oh,
A week.
okay.
So now let's multiply that times 52.
76,960.
Yep.
Okay. I want to just make a note of that. Bear with me for 1 minute here. That would be 76,960, you said?
960.
Okay, so now we want to add our 223,916 to that.
Kathy?
Survey says 300,877.
300,877. Okay. So now we know if, without making any changes to
To
our
labor.
full-time people,
Yeah.
to staff it the way they're asking, we can do it for, let's call it $301,000. The only thing, in my opinion, that we haven't talked about right now is utilizing our part-time people again for when people take time off. My question is, all our new hires, our full-time people, how much time off are they allowed a year with pay so that we can add that number and supplement it with our part-time people to get a true number for what it'll cost? Do they get a week's vacation? Do they get a week's sick time? How many personal days do they get? Because we need to know that times the 5 employees, correct? To add that amount of labor from part-time people to the 300.
Did I recall Scott or Denise saying that each of those people have an individual contract? They're not unionized.
No.
Right.
So if they've been on staff for what, since February, we're just coming into a 6-month period.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess that they must accrue at like a day a month or something, some formula that's industry typical. And they probably haven't accrued all that much yet, other than maybe a sick day. I don't think they probably accrued that much vacation time
Yeah.
at this point, but you
Right.
still have to come up with some flat figure.
Are you does the town basically go by paid time off? I mean, regardless of whether it's vacation, sick, or whatever? Or you still
think
have
it might be-
vacation time, sick time, and those things?
Yes, yeah.
So,
That's
Okay.
the point I want to make before we go too far. These are only salary figures. They are
Not
not with benefits.
Actuals,
They're
right,
not
Mhm.
with benefits.
right.
But they're not with benefits in here either.
No, they're not.
So,
So
we're
that's
on
hard
equal
to
playing,
project.
well, we're on equal playing
Yeah, it's
ground. No, we
apples
can
and
add the
apples.
40% to either the budget or our numbers when we finish them and we're on the same place.
Okay.
So if we were to assume that each
even
one
if
of
it was
these,
like 2 weeks, or, you
That's-
could make
you-
an assumption,
Yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know.
that's right where I am.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
so we have 80 hours for one employee times the 5 employees, right? Obviously, it's 400 hours. So what I'm saying is, we need at least 400 hours times 1850 to add to this to pay for the time off that our full-timers are going to be allowed, correct?
Right, and basic assumption is there's no catastrophic illness that would not allow someone to show up to work
Well,
and have to be back.
That would throw any
That would-
department
yeah,
off.
any
I mean, you
department off.
can't.
This would get-
Exactly.
This would get them 2 weeks off paid
Yep,
to start year one. And Jim, again,
What did you say, 80 times, what was that number?
it would be 80 times the 5 employees.
Yeah.
Which is 400 hours, times 1850 is, I believe, $7,400.
Yep.
So now let's add the 300,000, 877, and the 7,400. $308,277. Okay, so what I'm doing here is, this is staffed exactly the way they're asking right now. And I'm saying it's gonna cost us $308,000 if those employees have in fact 2 weeks off. What were they budgeted for on the labor only? I would say right off the top of my head that the OT would go away.
342.
It looks like total labor off of the dispatch page, and I don't know if everybody has that in front of them.
Does it-
But I'm looking at 342.
Yes,
That's-
342, 192.
Okay.
The only thing about the overtime is my understanding from what Scott was saying is part of that is paid for holidays and
Right,
things of that nature.
Right.
Yes, that stipend,
Right.
that holiday stipend.
yeah, there's like 10 holidays, paid holidays a year or 11.
Oh, that's a separate stipend. So then there's overtime as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the overtime was what, 20,
24.6.
yeah.
No, 61 in total, an increase of 24.6. I would think you'd still have to have some overtime,
I don't think
just
you
for
need-
those.
No, that's where you
occasions.
use your part-time people. And there, in this budget, there's a number allocated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 part-timers.
That's correct.
I don't think we'd care how many part-timers they hire. The only extra cost to us
Is
with
when they
additional.
actually pay them. When
Right,
they
they actually work
utilize
and
them.
get
Right,
Yeah.
or I was gonna add, plus your allowance and uniform cost, you know. Obviously, every time you
Yeah.
have a full-time employee, it's another $1,500 for the town. So if they weren't giving the town enough service, then, you know, you'd be able to eliminate an employee and eliminate that cost. But we have put together an entire schedule and put numbers to it. And whatever the difference is, I think we're pretty close.
So
So.
in
yeah.
terms of part-timers then, is that, other than the hours that you projected to fill in for the full-timers, is that where you see the basic savings?
Well, the savings is there's no overtime because the overtime is picked up by your part-time people. So there isn't overtime. You're going to save that. And what is the difference between the two numbers, the 342 and the
308?
And the 308.
And 34,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so would you guys agree that if there's a $34,000 savings, and this is staffing the way they want,
And
times
that's
40%,
that's keeping the overtime at 61,000.
keeping what?
That's still with the overtime at 61,000.
I don't have
I don't know.
overtime at 61. I've
Or
got
am I
I think
overtime
you're
at
talking about the
24.
department head?
No, I'm looking at the FY20 request. What, am I looking at it wrong? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, item
what am I talking about?
5130,
Right.
24,000.
2451.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I estimated from payroll records from companies that I'm involved with right now, I would take the savings that you had, right,
Yeah.
and add about $14,000 to that for OPED.
For just that savings.
Yeah, so I'm trying to calculate how much are we
Yeah. Total
not
savings.
saving. What does it really cost? You know, what's the difference between their number and the number
Right.
we're creating right now?
Okay.
So it would be, what did you say, 34 at first?
34.
34, so 48. So for about $50,000. So we're about $50,000 under.
So Mike,
Staffing
I'm
it
not
the way
sure
they're
about that.
asking for.
What are you adding to that?
I'm adding an OPED charge because if we're reducing labor by $34,000,
Do you mean like a benefits
All the
charge?
benefits,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
no.
so there's a substantial savings right there. Now the debate goes back to, you know, how do we want to staff this? You know, if I would probably suggest. I mean, this is a way that everybody is utilized except part-timers that aren't even brought on board yet.
Yeah.
And we're not guaranteeing any part-timers any specific number of hours because we don't know what, you know, how much they're actually going to be working. We know they'd be working 80 hours a week to fulfill the full requirement of what they're asking for. But, you know, that...
Between them all, 80 hours.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, I'm looking at what
Does anybody...
this
yeah.
wonderful calendar that you put together. Basically, you need 4 full-time dispatchers and 1 part-timer for these various shifts. Wherever the F5 shows up, it can be a full-time. That's the 11 to 7 shift
That could be that full-time, if we just want to call it
of float.
any full-time person, a department head or a full-timer, or it doesn't have to be, it could be a part-time person. I only put that scenario together as another full-time because that's what we've already hired.
Yeah. In your experience, do any departments in the area other than the cities, Springfield, Holyoke, Chicopee, do they have a communication center manager?
No. And I might add that our, you know, another cost here is, and I think you guys would probably agree, if I took a salary of all the pays that have been submitted in the budget here, that the average hourly
Yeah.
rate for all of them add together, our full-timers, comes out to be about $20 an hour. And the manager is paid 50% more. It's a 50% increase to have him over what a full-timer is getting right now, because if you take his pay at 61 and divide that out, that would be a $30 an hour figure, which is a 50% increase over the $20 that the other dispatchers are making.
But he's only there from what? Is he there like 8 to 4? Is he actually functioning 7 to 3?
I don't know that answer.
Well, it really doesn't matter, because if he fits into the equation, he is 40 hours of the support mechanism of the 280 hours that's
Right,
required.
whether he starts at 7.
So
ends at
regardless
4.
of what shift he works,
Yeah.
he's supposed to be, I'm guessing, you know, allocating 40 hours a week to the schedule.
Well, it's listed in the
And I
document, yeah.
believe he is, generally, but if he's out at meetings or, you know, doing other things, we can't be bringing in another part-timer
No,
to sit there.
no.
And,
That would be
and my experience is, for one, that and it's always worked this way in the past. We have an officer in the building. and that officer can pick up that second call if we have it. The comment that I made last week was, why can't, if we had an abundance of calls in a short duration of time, we're already staffing our fire department now. That was a change we made this year when we went 24/7.
Yeah.
Why can't that call roll over to the fire department? And if it's an increase in calls, like they're saying, and it's EMS related, that's their level of expertise too. So
Right.
I would rather have an EMS person answer that particular call. So we're paying them. We could cover that second shift, first and second shift with fire personnel. We can cover it with the police officer that's in the building. And then the last piece of the math equation that we did was when we did a time on task, we were showing that they were working approximately 55 hours of time on phone answering calls.
55 hours?
55 minutes.
Minutes.
50, yeah.
For an 8-hour shift.
Based on the call volume, and how
Yeah.
did you get there? You divided by
Well,
people?
It's-
The
5 minutes a
average
call.
number of calls
Calls.
per
Number of
month divided
calls.
by per getting to a per hour.
Okay, yeah.
Mike, just
and I used his, just for one,
Yeah,
just
no,
one second.
sorry,
So
yeah.
what I did too is I ran all the call volumes for surrounding communities, but more importantly, the call volume for East Long Meadow. My call volume, he came in at about 1,196 phone calls
Yeah.
per, what was
Month?
it now, per month, right? Was
Yeah.
it per month, right.
Yeah.
Because it was so I rounded it off to 400 a week, which is 1,200.
Yeah.
When you take your 1,200 calls and you multiply it times
Right.
approximately,
Three
the
shifts,
average
right.
calls are 3 to 5. I went on the high side. I said, I'm going to make all the calls 5 minutes. You know, you're coming out with, I think it's roughly 60,000 minutes. Now you divide that by 365 days, and there's your time on the phone per day. Divide that by 24 hours, now it's per hour. Multiply that times 8, and you're going to come out with 55 minutes during an 8-hour shift of time on
that's
task.
how I
Yeah. One of the things that I also found out in talking to some of my friends and colleagues from other communities is that they have a standard practice where they do not count in their call volumes multiple calls for the same event.
Yeah.
There's an accident. Everybody around has a cell phone. They get 6 or 7 calls. There's a person injured. Please dispatch. They don't, that's just a one issue.
one event.
One event,
Right,
7
yeah,
calls.
otherwise that would really
Otherwise,
throw off
you
your...
could really skew our numbers.
Right.
I don't know what we're doing here.
The numbers aren't skewed, even if you use 1,500 calls. When you're talking 55 minutes for an 8-hour shift,
Right.
that's not a lot of time on the phone for one
Yeah.
individual.
No.
And that's why, historically, in the past, in the other departments with similar call volume and population, run a dispatcher with a police officer to pick up any overload
Mhm.
or roll it to your EMS, your fire.
So Mike, I have, just to make sure I'm following, so if you take, you're utilizing all of the hours of the full-timers?
Yes.
And so we've got the full-time staff budget of the 224.
Correct,
That's in the budget.
224,000.
And then you estimated 18 and a half, 1850 per hour, 80 hours per week of part-time fill-in
Well,
to,
that's to achieve their goal, by the way. That's to get to the 280 hours that they're asking
So
for.
the-
That would be substantially less if you took the 80 hours out and that was supplemented by
and-
fire or
and see, that's my
police.
question, because
You would
by
be taking
making that assumption, that adds $77,000
There you
of
go.
part-time, and that's basically what they've asked for part-time wage, for the part-time wage budget.
Uh-huh.
So the savings is really because we haven't added anything in for overtime or the holiday stipend.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise, we're pretty much, could be, and I think maybe because you're staffing to the model.
Two communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To two
So unless we didn't do the, recommend the stipend or any overtime, the savings is, it's pretty much what their budget is
Well,
suggesting.
labor-wise, and that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to do the budget myself.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to do call volume myself. And our
Yeah.
numbers are lining up. But what we've just showed here is that extra 80 hours is costing you, it's costing you $100,000 because it's costing you $76,960 with the labor. short of benefits, and when you put 40% into that, it's another $25,000. So you're going to be $100,000 to have not utilize an officer in the station or a fire personnel to pick up any so-called extra call.
Right.
Okay, so thrashing that out.
There is just one more piece of this too that I have no way of checking at this point, but there is an additional $60,000 on non-salary expenses, and I guess one of the big items that jumps out is rental, lease, and office furniture of $31,000 a year. Did anybody look at that at all?
I didn't
Say
see
the
that.
line item again, rental,
Well, it
lease?
was-
Line 5270,
$52.70.
non-salary expense.
Yeah, I don't know.
It
It's up.
was budgeted last year at 20,000, now it's at 31,080. Yeah, what is that?
So, in the middle of, if we're going to be doing a feasibility study and other things, I probably wouldn't be buying office furniture and everything else.
Well, it says equipment, could it be the council?
Could it be the-
screen?
I see it on the last page, it's
The
that,
council's
I love this name,
30,000.
Goosetown.
Yeah.
Is the software host,
Goosetown
right?
is the vendor.
Is the vendor, okay.
The vendor did.
But it says on the last page, Goosetown monthly maintenance fee for radios.
Right.
Oh, well, then he writes photocopier 911 recorder, that's probably.
And that's an estimate
difference.
because
Right.
nobody knows when we're going to need their services and when we're not, depending on equipment failure. But,
It's not an estimate, it's an actual amount that we pay. It's a contract.
oh, is it a contract? Okay. So rather than pay on individual basis, yeah, it's kind of like having an attorney on retainer, I guess.
Well, it's-
Goosetown.
Yeah, it's for the maintenance and for the actual service.
Yeah,
Just a theoretical question. In a perfect world, we get the $1.1 million block grant that could come our way through the governor's,
Mhm.
at the governor's wishes. I don't know what else to put it, because really we're learning more about how our legislators put in for grants. They all go into this huge cauldron,
Yeah.
for lack of and a certain amount at the governor's wishes comes out each year and gets funded. So it's not, it looks good as a standalone statement, but whatever. But we get the 1.1 million, and we've done the feasibility study that we're going to fund this year. We have a plan to rehab, redesign the police station. The equipment we have for dispatch now, wouldn't that just
Yes.
stay? We're not gonna go out and buy,
It might not stay where it is.
well, no, I mean, but if it was, now they're moving down the hall,
That's right.
or into another, a new footprint of the, a larger footprint. We're not going out and buying this stuff again, correct?
Yeah,
We're just
that's
moving,
correct.
okay.
That's correct.
So is it safe to say this
Dark and stormy night.
$31,000 can come off of line 5270?
No.
No,
See, I'm not sure,
No.
because do we need the,
We don't
I mean, you
have
got the stipend holiday amount and you have overtime amount, so unless we can justify getting rid of those, I'm not sure. Because that
Yeah, we
don't-
seems to be
You're
the difference, Mike.
we
Right.
don't have separate costs. One is a monthly maintenance fee for the radios, evidently, photocopier, and a 911 recorder.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the
Oh, I'm talking about.
the
Yeah,
rental
yeah.
lease office equipment, yeah.
Yeah, 31,080. I'm sorry, what was your
Yeah, no.
question?
About the salaries.
Yeah, well, we'd still be, the way you're showing this, we have one dispatcher on for each shift,
Mm-hmm,
correct?
mm-hmm.
But we still have the same salary amounts. We don't have two dispatchers on a shift. And we're using one part-timer to fill in for after everybody's done their 4 days on, 2 days off, 4 days on. So would you suggest using one part-timer or two part-timers?
The question is, and my feeling is, it doesn't matter how many part-time people we have, because we're only paying them by the hour. It's how do we want to staff? And the overage
Staff
is...
the full-time.
Well, I staff this with 280 hours, and the 280 hours is what they asked for, and we put a cost to it. If you were to
Yeah.
staff it the way it's originally been staffed, it's a $100,000 savings. Because the 16 hours a day for a 1-year period is $100,000 to put
Yeah.
that second person. And I'm saying, I've said all along, and I guess this is the $1 million question, why don't we use what we did in the past? Until we have that second community, use another officer in the building if he's needed. The time on task is 55 minutes
Yeah.
on shift. How often is he going to be needed? Or why can't the EMS calls roll over to fire?
Yeah.
When we have them
How would you set that up?
24/7?
After so many seconds that the second line is ringing, it would roll to the fire station?
Sure. Or you can manually do it. If you're on the phone, it could be one.
Oh, well,
line, you
yeah,
just
somebody
push
can kick
over.
it, okay.
And on that note, it doesn't mean that the fire has to sit in the fire department.
No.
I mean, he could come over there. One person could come over as what the department feels his needs are,
Yeah,
to sit and answer that phone if there's a second call. But
yeah, well, then you'd have.
or you want to stay right where
Yeah,
you
we
are.
might have to-
They have an area in the fire department already for
Yeah.
where they're
Yeah, probably.
okay.
Yep.
So I'm saying again, we staff to attract another community. Right now, we don't have that community. It's costing us $100,000, and we're scrambling trying to find how to supplement for other departments that seems to feel they're in need. I'm trying to be creative and come up with financing to possibly cover another position. If we get a second community, that $100,000 would be amortized between whoever our partner is to cover that cost, plus open us up for grants.
If I understand it then, using the model that was staffing model, basically the budget for salaries, part-time and full-time, pretty much matches up. You would need that many part-time hours expense and full-time so the real question is the model, do you use that model, while the call volume is a little bit lower than you anticipated and while you don't have another partner community to share the expenses, it seems to me.
My experience, and I think everyone would agree with, is nobody can predict
Right.
when calls are going to come in. The luxury of what we're presenting is that there's already an officer there, and he can be doing reports, he can be doing anything he needs to do. If he needs to answer an extra call, like I do from time to time when I'm in a department, then you're already there. So go over and help if the workload picks up, or
Yeah.
call somebody in if you need that much assistance that's on the road. Don't forget, we have multiple people on the road. You also are already staffing with the fire department. If it seems to be one of those days, roll your EMS calls, because where's the call from dispatch going to go anyway? It's going to go from your dispatcher over to EMS to the fire department to dispatch for an EMS call. Why not let them pick it up and save time? It saves a step, and they're already there and they're already being paid. And all this can go away when you get a second community if you choose to go that way. But in the interim, it's costing us $100,000.
And now I'm a novice at this, at dispatch, but it appears to me that the way you set this up on the calendar that you devised, we need 4 full-time dispatchers, period. 1
Yes.
part-time dispatcher. I would suggest a second one, just on call, no, not really on call, but in the
Available.
wings, available,
You
yeah.
want to keep that second one. You definitely want a second one, because don't forget, your first part-time dispatcher is to backfill on 2 shifts.
Right.
Okay, so
They're
that's
filling
16
in
hours.
on those 2 days
Okay?
of 4
So you're
on, 2 off.
guaranteed, that part-timer is guaranteed 16 hours every single week.
Yeah,
But now somebody calls out, he could get 32 hours that week, he could get 40. but you still need, I would say, maybe even 2 or 3. And I'm not opposed to how many part-timers we have, because they're going to be used when people take vacation and call out sick and go to training.
It's an
We're not
ongoing
paying,
cost,
we're only
right.
paying, it's, supply and demand. We're paying them when we're using them.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, on the schedule, there's like 76 hours right there that could be split between 2 part-timers.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
80, well, we used 80 because that
Yeah,
would
yeah,
put 2
round it up.
dispatchers on
Yeah.
first and second shift, 7 days a week.
So
Without the 80, that's the $100,000.
I'm trying to bring this all down to a reasonable proposal in cost reduction to the council. So, do we say, okay, you've got a manager, you've got 4 full-time dispatchers, and you've got basically 3 part-time with 1 in training now, so evidently and Scott indicated he wasn't going to hire the 5th part-timer when we spoke with him. So if we only need 2 part-time people, we would be dropping off 2 part-time dispatchers, and we would be dropping off 1 dispatcher. How complicated is it to give everybody their schedule for the month? Could
It's-
you have a lead dispatcher that would do this work, assign the times working? I don't know how important the grant writing is to this position, but how long is it gonna go on? Because generally, you get state grants for a period of time and then you absorb all the cost. Right? That's been my experience.
E911 grant is a standard grant.
A standard grant every single year?
Every year. It's used to subsidize dispatching costs.
And how much is the grand total on that grant?
I don't have that number.
It was like
I
84,000.
was thinking 78, but.
That went to the police, yeah.
There are 2, there's a support and incentive grant, and then there's a training reimbursement grant. So they are both approximately 40 to 50,000 each year. So around 90 to 100,000.
And it actually went up.
Is that reflected in his, the budget he gave us?
No, not all of that is, because you have to apply and then they approve your expenses, and they don't do that until February. So we did reduce a little bit, but some of it might get reduced if new things become eligible, because they have increased each year what becomes eligible, so we can't assume that we know what they're having.
So it may or may not happen.
No,
No.
the increases may or may not happen, the
Okay.
existing's already taken care of.
So the grants are are they netting somewhere against the expenses, Sarah?
In the grant account. So the expenses will be charged to that grant account and not come to here.
So those are expenses over and above what's being budgeted for the general fund budget? Okay.
Yeah. Now, if some of the new support and incentive or the new training grant covers some of the costs that are currently in the general fund, we by all means will charge those directly to that grant and see a savings in the dispatch department. But since it hasn't been awarded, it would be imprudent and financially irresponsible to have budgeted for a grant that we don't have any means of guessing that we're getting.
Right.
I just wanted to add, I wanted everybody to see what a working schedule looks like with a 4-on, 2-off rotation. But this schedule has nothing to do with the economics.
Right.
It's hours. It's all about hours.
Right.
Depending on how you allocate those hours has nothing to do with it, whether somebody works first shift, second shift, or backfills. They're asking for 280 hours, and we're showing that you could do it with 200 hours without a second person assigned to first shift and second shift weekly, and that position would be covered by whoever's in the building or fire.
Fire.
So now that
That's what it's
Denise
about.
is here along with Sarah, I did have 2 questions.
I had one too I sent to Sarah over the weekend.
All right. Well, it's related to the dispatch.
Yeah.
The information you sent us Friday night, Denise, referred to 311,000 of police overtime that sounded like it would be reduced because the civilians
The overtime.
would take over the dispatch. And I thought I would see some kind of reduction in the police overtime budget to kind of reflect that, and yep, it looks flat. So instead of there being a net, like, savings to net against the cost of the dispatch, it just looks like incremental
So
cost.
what happened is, first of all, that the contract provided for an increase in salaries. So with the cost not going up, it's actually reducing how many hours. We also know that we already had a position open that will still need to be filled. So we know that there's going to be some potential overtime cost related to that, as well as Chief DeLassio had stated, a lot of the focus for this year is on training, and you still have to have coverage, so there can be training costs.
So in essence, the police budget absorbed that
Actually,
savings.
actually, the overtime for the police dispatching was
Dispatch.
paid by the
Yes,
grant as
the
well.
grant.
Yeah. So it
All right.
wouldn't be reflected in this budget, it
Right.
was paid for through the grant.
I just had one other question. Reading the information, it looked like you had, it was clear that if there were, given the budgeting model, that if there wasn't a second community picked up, that there would be budgeting issues for FY20. I mean, I think you kind of predicted that was a possibility. Have you and Scott developed a kind of backup plan to, like, back away from this staffing model to a less robust staffing model until, such time as you were able to pick up another community?
When we talked to the council, we had given them a staffing model of 2, 2, and 2. So
Yeah.
two for each shift. And what we now are using is 2 in the day, 2 in the evening, and only 1 in the middle of the night. So we haven't fully done what we had originally predicted.
But that was with 2 communities. And we're only staffed for one, we're staffed for 2 communities now. And the models that we've all looked at and supported in the past were for 2 communities coming on. Another community to help offset the cost, which isn't here.
Those are my questions on the dispatch.
I
Yeah,
I would ask
yeah.
the same. I mean, Kathy, that's what you spoke of earlier, right? The direction, how this was put in place, how it was budgeted, and the what-if scenarios. What if we don't have a second community? What do we do then? And I can understand why we staffed the way we did. It was to attract a second community, but
Yeah.
being a moving target, it didn't happen. It doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. And why would we spend $100,000, especially if we have people in the building that can suffice in that position as a second person?
Yeah, well, the requested dispatch budget for this year is $401,508. It's an increase of $90,508 from the startup that happened in this fiscal year. I think it's gonna take more than our committee's suggestion to resolve this.
All right.
My suggestion is that we simply reduce the budget by a specified amount and leave the council to work it out.
Without
I don't see any
benefits.
other way
Well, we're
around
not
it.
I don't
gonna,
either.
we don't have them.
So I have a motion
Means.
here that was made by the council.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Ford made a motion to move forward with the hiring of a dispatch staff in-house with fiscal year 19 budgeted funds, regardless, with entering into a partnership with another community. Councilor Anderson seconded and all were in favor. President Hill noted that Councilor Kane did not vote on that. So I thought it was the understanding of the council that they were voting on staffing it the
Yeah,
way we did.
well,
And the 90,000 is an increase because we didn't fund it for the whole year last year.
I can understand that. I also have your note that Ms. Menard added that it's not clear right now if there will be shared service or individual dispatch. There could be a problem with the budget next year, and indeed there is.
I'm not arguing.
No, I'm not either, but I mean, it's a frustrating scenario to have set something up to have 2 towns and have the taxpayers pay for a 2-town system and try to figure out how to provide for safety and why we cannot have 1 dispatcher per shift to protect our town and look at the possibility of rollover calls going to maybe the fire station and save the town some money. And quite frankly, the people that set this up should be the people that figure out how to save the taxpayers some money. So my recommendation is we take that $90,000 right off the top, and that's our recommendation.
I would second that.
I'll have a motion.
For some reason, I was thinking 50,000, but only
don't think
because,
50,000.
I wouldn't do that.
your
I'm not
No?
I support
your
yours.
fiscal year starts July 1st.
Right.
Which is right around the corner. You've got a number of people already hired and staffing, and it just strikes me that it's gonna take a little transition, a little time. You're not gonna affect that savings right away. So
Yeah.
I agree, we should pick a number.
Yeah, all right, let's talk about
And-
the
and-
number.
Well, I don't know
It's 80
if 50's the right
the 80
number.
hours.
but-
I have,
It's 80
I have
hours,
no
which
idea.
equates to $76,960.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's that extra 80 hours.
Yes,
So
that's
would
what we're
you-
discussing.
Yeah, so that would be the 76,960 in part-time hours.
Without benefits, which would push it a delta to 100,000, so. in
well,
essence,
it's
we're
part-time, so
Yeah, there are no.
there wouldn't be benefits for
Yeah,
them.
small Medicare
Mike, how about
costs.
make it easy, 75,000?
75,000?
I would support that.
I will support.
I think
Okay.
it's gonna be a tough, I don't think we are in a position
No.
to figure it out.
We haven't had enough,
So, well, all we can do is recommend it, and hopefully there's a way to kind of hunker down for a little while, still provide the service, and then
right.
be able to, expand
It's
it.
only a recommendation,
Right.
the council will
So
do what they
it's
please.
been seconded and
No
moved.
formal motion yet.
Oh.
I'd like a formal motion on the reduction of 75,000 to this budget.
Well, it's, as Jim stated, I mean, it was moved and seconded.
It was?
Was it, that you weren't you were?
Were you motion moving his motion?
I think
you-
we should redo the motion because the amount changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're amending the amount to an even $75,000. So the motion should read,
If you prefer the exact amount, that's fine with me, Mike.
okay.
If you're
Well,
better.
it
that way.
correlates to 80 hours, so I would be in favor of using the
because
amount
then it
because
follows
when we're
his
trying to
logic.
show people why we're doing what we're doing, we're removing 80 hours of paying another individual when we have individuals that are already on our payroll that
Mhm.
could sit in that capacity.
Mhm.
I did want to add one other, well, we should finish what we're doing.
Yeah, we're gonna finish the
So,
motion.
what's your motion? 76,000?
76,000, I move that we deduct $76,960,000 from the dispatch budget, which represents 80 additional hours of labor.
So moved.
That's
Your
a second.
Your second.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I moved that you can second it.
Oh,
All right.
second.
Any further discussion?
Um,
Hearing,
Oh, go ahead. I'm
hearing
sorry.
none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 80 hours of part-time work.
Now that that's done, I did want to mention that when we were in preliminary discussions, I don't believe the fire department at that point in time was 24/7.
No, they didn't go on until December.
Okay, so that's a valid point, because we didn't have that option of being able to supplement
Yeah, this-
having somebody to pick these extra calls up, not being staffed 24/7.
Yeah.
Now we do have that luxury.
Yeah. Yeah, because these votes for the dispatch were taken in September. So that would make sense. Okay, that being taken care of. The next item that we have to look at is we've had discussions on the help desk administrator for the school.
For IT.
Right.
I'm sorry, for
Okay.
IT. In the meantime, I have a question for Sarah, if you will indulge me. Sarah, have you been able to give me the levy amount that you were working on when you were working the,
Oh, I thought I answered you the other day.
no, you didn't.
Oh, okay. I will email that to you.
Do you have that with you today?
No, I don't.
I will need it today.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I had answered your question the other day, so
Oh.
that's why I didn't email it to you.
Yeah. I just need to know the levy you were using so we can fine tune our presentation for tomorrow night. Okay, now, question goes back. I know that in our discussions with Ryan, he said he would take what he could get. However, the timing of giving him just a 6-month okay on the help desk administrator didn't really help him for the start of school in September and the issuance of those Chromebooks to the students. So, have you had any further thoughts?
I had thoughts, and I don't know if it can be phrased this way, but if it's wrapped together with the dispatch, I would be in favor of, if we're able to accomplish the goal with the dispatch, to fund that position full-time.
What's the difference again?
Well, I think it's about 94.
No. What,
Or
for
not.
Ryan, if it's,
That's what I was talking about. Or is it 78?
Well, it was
78 with benefits. I wanted to say-
79,000 with
Yeah.
benefits.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was
with
thinking of the
benefits.
SEL.
So it's actually a savings for.
It's pretty much a wash.
Well, that's what your benefits, though, 80, and the 76 is without benefits?
It is, but those were part-time benefits, so it'd be at a much lower level.
Gotcha, okay. So, yeah, so wash, it's called.
And I think for us, we had in our original projections a 6-month, putting 6 months
Yeah.
of the administrator.
Yeah,
And I would be in favor of that. It sounds like with all of the things that have been centralized to his area for support and the additional, computers and units, and the fact that he needs to do it in the summertime and whatever, that, it's probably time for him to get
Yeah,
some
this,
help.
this supports the one-to-one program the
I don't
schools
think
would
it's,
like to initiate.
I don't think it's responsible to fund the one-to-one initiative and
Yeah.
not provide
This supports that.
The-
Help desk.
physical support to make a one-to-one work.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to know where the funds were coming from, and now that I think we have a reasonable solution, so
Yeah.
I would be in favor of swapping the funds.
Sure.
So I'd move to recommend allowing for the full-time help desk administrator in IT.
Yeah.
Contingent.
Supported by, contingent upon the decision on dispatch.
Well, we can only
yeah.
recommend.
You're gonna- Yeah, right, but you're only gonna, at some point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
look at bottom line numbers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, we've had a motion. Has it been seconded?
Not yet.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any further discussion on the help desk administrator? Funding that position for the whole of fiscal year 2020. No further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Do you need to put in for the whole FY20 into the motion? I mean, you mentioned it after the second, but
Pardon?
do you need to put in the whole FY20 into the motion, Jim's motion? Because he
The
just
salary?
recommended the full-time. No, he just recommended the full-time, allowing for the full-time help desk administrator for IT.
I'm
But
sorry.
then you mentioned for the entire
I just
year.
assumed that
Okay.
meant, it
All right.
meant for the full year
Yeah.
FY20.
Okay,
Do you want us to do it again for clarification?
All right, so
please.
restate it to clarify, recommend the addition of the full-time help desk administrator for IT for the full 12 months of FY20.
Great, thank you.
Have a second?
yeah, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Well, I don't know if we saved any money, but we recommending moving money. Okay. There were, Jim has been working very hard over this past weekend.
Tomorrow night. That's not much time.
And more coming, yeah. This is the potential budget adjustments, which will probably
Thank you.
want to date. You have your copy, Jim?
I took a copy, yes.
Okay, that's for Kathy and myself. All right. All right. This would be what we would give out to the council tomorrow as part of our packet. It shows some of our adjustments that we have made as far as, for instance, Chapter 70 Education Aid. Town manager's budget was using $12,082,021. We're using $12,102,021. Slight changes, $20,000. Same for other state aid. We have changed that according to the governor's budget. We have estimated another $30,000 onto motor vehicle excise. That's at the discretion of the finance director when she does her estimated receipts for the recap, but for our purposes, we're using it. So we brought up the general fund sources from $63,496,943 to $63,629,841. A slight change of $132,898. Education, we show the adjustments. Our determinations on the next page, on the new positions that were requested. Now,
So this will change, the IT will change.
the IT will change and probably the dispatcher.
Well,
will
actually,
change.
the fact that it's 0 here means we didn't cut it,
Okay,
so it's in this calculation.
okay.
Because we hadn't decided to
To do that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And it was for 12 months, it shows.
Yeah, the budget was for 12 months.
yeah.
Versus 6, so.
The OPEB trust fund, we're removing a line item of $100,000 and just assuming that you could add that to a $1,100,000 if you so chose to transfer to the OPEB.
So are you recommending it come from free cash like the voting machines? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. Or you don't have to do it at all. It's at your discretion.
So what is the recommendation of your committee though?
Recommendation of the committee was originally to do the 1.1.
Right.
And
And that's allowable, correct? I mean, there's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at it over the weekend on the website, and I understand that the treasurer has to file a report on December 31st on what was put into the OPEB trust fund for the previous fiscal year. So I think we'd be safe and still going on a good course. The police cruiser, we added the truck, but we added it from casino mitigation funds. The sidewalk construction, at the suggestion of the town manager, was reduced by $25,000 to $50,000. The town hall generator was excluded. The feasibility study was added back in, but from free cash, as well as the voting machines added back in with a recommendation from free cash. So our potential adjustments were a minus $613,890. This page here is kind of a lot of our assumptions, no rate of evaluation change, so forth. That again may change. We'll have to do another page, Jim. You think? No?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all in what number should we be using, so,
Yeah,
all I've been doing is taking the total, which starts with the surplus that the town manager's budget had of like 641, adding the additional changes we recommended for a
Right.
total of a surplus of $1,255,000. I'm taking that and subtracting it from the required, the levy to
Yes,
see
the
what
limit.
we would actually have to tax.
yeah,
And that would put us at $43,468,000, which, again, if you used an assumed 1.25% increase in valuation would put you at $21,522, or if you used the FY19 valuation, would be at 2179.
Okay.
And the middle part was just the analysis of the balances to make sure that it looked reasonable to take out
May I get
from
a
the free
copy of that?
cash.
On this one here,
Sarah asked if she could get a copy of this.
it's not finalized. We're gonna have to make some changes on this, so,
Again, it's public record.
I know but it's a working copy right now. It's a worksheet.
It still is public record.
But it's not finalized, and I would prefer not to give you, I would gladly give it to you at another moment in time. The Town Council Financial Oversight, the capital projects, kind of follows the copy that was there. Pass this out as well.
Thank you.
And this for Kathy.
One down for Kat.
This is all part of our report for tomorrow night. It's not a finished document.
And I would say thank you to Sarah and Denise for forwarding their spreadsheet.
Yes, yeah, that was a big help. I think we've gone through all of this before.
Yeah, I think the only thing I was trying to do was show, I missed my copy of the, do you have another copy?
Sure.
The one I thought I had, I'm missing my page one.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Here, go ahead.
No, there's a,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I think I made it up.
Don't have anything else.
Just using the same format that was used for the previous two presentations. Although you could twist my arm and say, just use the worksheet, but, and, you know, where there's no change, there's no change. So page one, basically, we didn't recommend any changes.
No,
And the only two changes really were on the top of page two, the annual sidewalk, and the town hall generator.
yes.
And if you want any changes to the comment, you know,
I
can
didn't
easily be incorporated.
Yeah, I'll read through them, I'll let you know. Okay, the rest is enterprise.
Yeah, and then the
financial
other
statement.
part is just the addition of the feasibility study and the voting machines, showing them coming from free cash.
Okay,
And other than that, I mean, it pretty much all tracks to the town manager's
budget
budget.
presentation, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and on page 4, which is projects recommended to be funded from other sources, that's where I added the truck replacement to kind of match up, because that's where the
Stormwater.
Pine Knoll parking lot was there for the casino
Yeah.
mitigation fund, so I added the truck there for because it's coming from the casino mitigation fund.
Okay. All right,
You should put your items that you're recommending from free cash there as well.
Oh, okay, all right, I wasn't quite sure which way to do it. All right,
and this last one is all the recommendations combined?
yeah, is that passed out?
No, I haven't passed
Oh,
it out
okay.
yet, I just wanted to make sure that we have. These are dated,
So this will go down to
so
Kat.
that you'll know. Do you have your copy, Jim? don't.
Hopefully I have a page 1.
You can use mine. So.
No, I should have. I was just making a note.
And the one for Kathy?
Oh, I just
gave
got
her-
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so basically, it's just a review of what we've decided to date. Let's just look it over and,
Yeah, well, it's not quite, because what I did, this is the format. Again, thank you to Denise and Sarah for forwarding theirs. And that's only if you want to continue using the same format for the presentation tomorrow night.
I think it would be easier for them to follow. What do you think, Kathy?
I would use
Yeah,
the same
All
format.
right. So this is just really set up to show it this way. The town, the ones where we're changing, you can see they're shaded and bolded and italicized. This is where we have to show the changes. And this is where it gets a little dicey because, in particular, where we're cutting out full-time positions or things of that nature, our calculations are based on benefits and salary. And these line items really are salary only.
Yes.
And the benefits, I assume, Sarah, are probably a combination of payroll tax and health insurance and
Right, and those are
of
several
several
other
different
departments.
line items.
Yeah, so do you want to be able to put it there, because otherwise it's not gonna match up?
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the best route is, whether we put the salary here and in this section that you have benefits, add a line to show that the reduction that we would anticipate that you would calculate, on it, or,
May I come up there for a second?
sure.
So.
So the payroll tax is here, and then the rest of the benefits would be here. So if you are going to make a reduction in salary
Yeah.
there, you should make a difference in here, in those two lines. So even if you put it all to here, the health insurance line, the payroll taxes is 1.45% of the salary. So that one's easy to put
Yeah.
there.
Okay. And then the remainder,
And then the remainder of those benefits that you calculate would be in this line.
right?
So that way then the salary will match, because otherwise it's going to look like you did it's not gonna work
Right,
right.
exactly. And you wouldn't be able to use it to vote on or anything because it wouldn't.
Exactly. So if you did that, then it would actually balance correctly. Okay?
Yeah, I would just use the salary item.
For the department line item
Yes.
budgets. And what I would say is I'll do a calculation based on what Sarah provided us on this spreadsheet that we've been using all along.
Yeah.
And break it down by the 1.45 and the remainder to the health insurance.
I would be more inclined to say plus an accompanying benefit, because there's so many different things included in there. The Medicare, the insurance, the life insurance.
The Medicare is the payroll taxes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and there's workers' comp. There's,
Workers' comp would not be affected there. It's a flat premium that we pay,
okay,
so that won't have any savings.
and you don't really know what the health benefit would be for that position. It depends on the person coming in.
What they select.
Well, oh, yes,
Yeah.
but I think
Go
the
worst
assumption
case scenario.
for budgeting
Yeah.
purposes was the worst case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to take a stab at it.
Well, I mean, I would take a stab. I would suggest that I'd want to pass it through you and pass it through
So,
Sarah to
See
make
if it
sure
looks
that
reasonable.
and hopefully the numbers would add up to what we would have expected to see from our worksheet.
yeah. Okay, got a lot of work to do this afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, and we'd have to make our comments.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the only thing is, I did send an email. I didn't realize all of them were separate spreadsheets. So you're covered with the sources, and then the cover with the end page that had the sources and uses. I need to get those so I can do the summary.
Yeah, I saw your email right
Yeah.
before I came in here. I didn't realize that you needed it. I thought you only needed the uses, so I only gave you.
Well,
that
because we
spreadsheet.
made adjustments to our assumptions, that's why.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll be able to do that this afternoon. Because you want it in the same format as I gave you the uses. that
Well,
you
with the
requested.
theory that the town council's seen it twice in that format, I guess that's what I'm
No, I
thinking.
mean the columns that you had, for the uses, you requested me to give you first what was presented, what the departments wanted, and then that was the March presentation, and then you wanted the second column to be the April 29th presentation, and then a third column to be for the subcommittee
Yeah.
comments, so you
Yeah.
want the same number of columns, I had to create this, I had to
Oh,
create that.
whatever you have, Sarah, because actually did away, I didn't try to, and that's a question I guess for the committee.
Yeah.
I hid the column in this one that had our budget recommendations. I hid the column of the requested because it seemed inoperable, because we're
Okay.
basically using the town manager's 429 budgets. I
Right.
was just showing the changes from the 429 budget,
Yeah.
unless you all wanted to have the column showing the requested.
No,
Okay,
it's better to work from this than,
all right,
yeah,
Then
the
I'll be
original
able to do it much
request.
All
faster
right.
now, because I had to add those in.
okay.
On page 4 of this, you have the 100,000 on the OPEB, I notice,
Right.
so that'll be removed.
Oh, yes, I have to add that
Yeah,
reduction.
okay, so we're meeting tomorrow morning, will you have that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We posted? What
To
time?
the drawing board.
I mean, I would hope to get it out, at least for people to check, because I'd be concerned about the accuracy
Yeah.
of it, and then being able to get copies of
Did I
it.
miss?
okay.
I-
Done a fantastic job.
Yes, thank you,
Fantastic job.
Jim.
Thank you very much.
I did have a question while we still have, it's that Community Preservation Act. Sorry to keep harping on that, but it's just kind of like niggling at me. Where is the 263 revenue that offsets that
It's mixed into
263
the-
general fund?
It's mixed
Expense.
into,
It's mixed into the local other projected revenues, or?
No, it's a separate line.
So it is in here. It's in here, I believe. Yeah.
How would it be in
No,
there?
no, I'm
Because
sorry.
that would be
It's-
an additional 1%,
It's
right?
in here. It's in the other projected. I believe. This part is the community preservation that offsets the
The
payment.
debt service.
And so then the additional, what is it, 1 or 1.5% surcharge, I believe is in here.
So that 200, there's approximately 263.
That nets itself out, so it has a 0 impact on the overall budget.
All right, so that 263, which
Yes, right
gets
here.
netted out, that's buried in that.
Yeah, so it nets out to 0.
All right.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I've seen a
And then-
detailed breakdown of that.
And then if you were to keep going in the presentation where the community preservation thing is, you'll see that I estimate revenues at 250, which is, yes, less than the 263, but the reason being is, it's a guess. We have to also, not everything's going to actually be collected in the current year. We know that we have some receivables outstanding, so we leave that. And then also it's an estimate as to how much we're going to get from the state for the matching portion of it. So that other part is impacted by there too. So when I do that, I'm generally very, very close to therefore get all of the open space, the housing, and the historical buckets correct.
All the allocations, yeah.
Mhm. And
All
so
right.
we base all those allocations. I do a true up
All right.
during the year to make sure that it stays the exact percentages. So it does
All right.
impact all
It
that.
was such a big amount, I just wanted to make sure
No, it
in my
is in
head
there.
that it's...
It is in there.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. One of the taxpayers sent this to one of our members. I don't recall which one just yet, but just their scribblings on what the impact is of some of the different.
Yeah, this is a sampling, this was forwarded
Did you
to me.
text everyone, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I just sent it out as informational,
Yeah.
Yeah, contractual increases.
something for us to think about.
What is this?
It just kind of projects the
It's just,
impact on the tax rate for different things.
Like to
yeah.
Yeah,
give a visual of how it
Yeah.
breaks out? Okay.
Yeah.
It was a recommendation, a template
Yeah.
that
Oh,
someone
okay.
has used in the past, that they thought might be helpful if we use it, so people understand a little bit better what the impact is. So these numbers are not correct. These are just
Yeah,
What ifs?
what ifs. Some of them are close, but they're just still what ifs.
okay.
It's just to show the intent of this
Of course,
kind of a
we're
slide.
still not sure.
Right, I would say
What to use
if
for
you-
our mill rate. We
Right.
want to use the same, whatever you're projecting is what we wanted to use for the
The levy amount?
projected mill rate.
Yes, to use for the.
Right.
Because that's probably going to be part of our presentation, Sarah. So that number, I mean, we're using a number, but I'm not sure whether it's the best
Yeah,
number.
We're working backwards.
So what number are you using?
Well, we're taking the 1,994,000, the valuation from FY19, and we increased it by
By
1.25%.
Yeah,
And I do not assume any increase in values.
no, I think you mentioned that.
Yep, I said that at the
Yeah.
last one that
And then,
that's gonna make a
I
big
think-
difference.
I think in a sheet that isn't quite.
So you're using, your projected FY20 mill rate is based on the FY19 valuation.
Right.
And it's
Because you
gonna
already,
change.
into the calculation, you already make an assumption of growth in there. And then we also have, as I stated before, we have several cases at the appellant tax board. So I don't want to make an assumption, and there are several large cases. If we lose those, that's a significant hit to our tax basis, so I did not feel it was financially prudent to do that.
Yeah. Well,
Felt it better to stay conservative and
Not-
stick with the value that you know you have.
not all new construction or changes in property result in new growth.
Correct, yep,
So-
absolutely.
So, and we took a look at valuation increases over the past 3 years. I didn't go 5 years because it was actually a reduction in in those preceding 2 years. So we came up with an average, and I consulted with one of the assessors, and they felt that we could use 1.25 safely. So that's what we did for the purposes of our calculations.
Oh, I thought you said you did 1.5,
No, 1.25.
1.25.
Yeah,
No,
and even if there's an appellate decision, it would have to be made between now and when you do the tax rate. So chances are that value would appear for compilation of the taxes and would then have to be abated or adjusted after that point in time. So I think we're okay.
When I made my assumptions, it was back in January, so
Oh, that's a little while ago.
it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay, so if you could, if, you know, send Jim and I by email the levy that you were using to calculate that 2207 rate.
Sounds
then
like
we
so-
can-
Well, as I said,
It's
I
the 1
just-
million, is it the 1,994,994?
Yeah, I just took the current 19 evaluation, and then as you have here, on the summary sheet. Sorry.
It's a well-used
so-
document.
What
Yep.
page is that?
He doesn't
Doesn't
have
have
a page
Page,
on.
no, it's
It's
hidden,
some-
12, page
Oh,
12.
Okay,
It's hidden by my
So
scribblings.
this is calculating what the maximum amount would be. So I then take it and I minus my difference here. My 641 divided by here, and it's the tax rate.
So you take
So-
this minus that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
divided by this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I would have come out with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
what's that number, Jim?
It's the one in this box right here, Chris,
Oh, okay,
that tracks to what Sarah was describing.
okay, so she's using this amount,
Yep.
44,032,020.
Yeah, which
That
is
was
the
if I
tax
changed one
minus the
aspect.
surplus,
Yeah,
and comes out to that exactly 2207. The number in the bottom was just if we used a 1.25%
okay,
growth.
okay.
That way then the spreadsheet's all set up to match with that, so if I make one change in one area on the whole budget, it will automatically calculate. I don't have to worry about transposing a
Mhm.
number by having to manually change that each time.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
That's a job.
Yeah. Chris, just a quick comment. I had discussions, well, been having a lot of discussions with townsfolk lately, but I talked with members of the planning board, and there have been a number of new builds that have come before them, which, you know, is not a guarantee, but they've approved a couple of projects which are going to add, in their estimation, about 50 homes to the tax rate. Now, how long is it going to take to build them? When they're going to be occupied? I think are all what
Well-
ifs. So that's probably something for next year, but
Exactly, because assessors can only pick up through June 30th.
right, and that's not going
So-
to happen before that. But I just
Right.
wanted to make that comment.
Gives you
that-
good, it
Indication.
gives you some optimism for.
Yeah, that the town is
Yeah.
growing, and that's just a conservative estimate.
Yeah.
And an additional, in that conversation, as we all, I don't know if everyone's aware, but Ron Goldstein passed away.
Yes,
So his property now, according to what we've understand by his son, is up for sale, and it has a lot of developable land.
yeah. Yeah, that was under consideration before we
When-
purchased the Brown
right.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the future may look a lot brighter next year.
Your education budget, depending on
Yeah.
50 new homes.
Yeah.
So just in
None
this,
of them will be for empty
this
nesters.
example, I find it an interesting way to approach it, a different way to look at it.
True.
I don't know whether we have time to
No.
to utilize it for the purposes of tomorrow night, unfortunately, because we just haven't.
Right, I would say, once we get past the council making, or hanging their hat on numbers that they feel they can live with, and giving instructions to Sarah and Denise to put the budget, the real numbers together for next
Right.
Tuesday, which then we'll move motions on, then based on that, you might be able to develop something like this.
Yeah.
Because then it'll be firm.
Yeah, because it's a neat way of
Yeah.
kind of showing it.
And it's
Are
a,
you suggesting that we're working after tomorrow?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a unique way of looking at it. And-
Yes.
And one, I did a quick calculation, and one estimate on here is correct in that the work we were doing with dispatch alone is adding 20.5 cents to the mill rate.
Yeah,
That's huge.
yeah.
And
It's
under
big
its
until
current-
we get a partner
Right,
community.
under its
Yeah.
old discussion, now we've trimmed that a little, so that hopefully that would come down a little bit, but that's the biggest amount, and the huge increase.
Well, we're
Aside
looking,
from the contractual increases that took place with the unions.
Well, that's it. There's a lot of embedded increases in the budget as it existed in fiscal 19.
Mm.
Because you've got a full-time fire department,
Mhm.
you've got the Collins study.
Eventually,
So,
things will start to
you
pay
can-
out.
Yeah.
the ambulance, yeah.
Yeah.
That said, we're meeting tomorrow at 10,
30.
10:30?
10:30.
Yes.
Okay. Tomorrow at 10:30, we will meet here, right, Jean?
Yep.
And that'll be a final look at this budget for the time being, before our meeting with the council.
Gene, are you able to make copies for the town council meeting
I've
tomorrow
already
night?
talked to Tom Florence.
Oh, okay.
We do
All right,
that
good.
normally, so whatever.
Yeah,
So that
Yeah.
might be our final, like,
Yeah,
look at
I
what
told
we
Tom-
use and,
I
okay.
told Tom we'd be in tomorrow.
All right.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.